Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about the CFP rankings. Couple of things that I don't necessarily love. Don't know why Utah's that high, but I feel like I've talked about that before. The Miami versus Notre Dame debate is one that will probably go till Selection Sunday, unless one of them takes care of it for ourselves, and tend to believe they're not going to. So it's going to be an interesting one on that Selection Sunday. If Miami doesn't get in, Notre Dame does, we got a problem. I'll tell you that. But let's go ahead and get into my Week 13 picks. We got four big games, as far as I'm concerned. Four games that will totally change what the CFP looks like, or at the very least could change what the CFP looks like. And we'll start over there in Norman, Oklahoma. Number 22, Missouri, goes to number 8, Oklahoma. Oklahoma favored by 7.5, over-under at 42.5. This one's a noon kickoff. A weird dynamic coming into this game, because technically Beau Paribla could be available, but it sounds like Matt Zollers is going to start. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's we could have Beau Paribla in packages. I don't know if that's we get down by 14, we'll put in Beau Paribla to try to lead us back. I don't know what that looks like. That's a very, very interesting thing, and something that will be interesting to watch as we get closer to game day. Maybe Beau Paribla isn't even available for the game. It sounds like he very well could be. So we'll see how that develops. It sounds like it's going to be Matt Zollers at the start of the game. Maybe we see Paribla at some point throughout this one. But Oklahoma obviously coming off that massive win over Bama. I said in the breakdown when we talked about this one, the rest of this is not going to be easy for the Oklahoma Sooners. They forced 3 turnovers in that game and they won by 2 points. It's a very good team. It's a very, very aggressive defense. They are hard-nosed as can be. They have probably the best defensive line in the country, especially interior defensive line in the country. They are as mean as can be. It's not going to be perfect. Every single week, it is not going to be perfect, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, particularly in this game, as far as I'm concerned. When you have Zion Young and Damon Wilson on the other side, John Mateer is going to have a hard time changing this game with his legs, just in general. The same way I think he did against Texas. Now, the injury, I think, kept them from running him just a little bit in that game. Obviously not a foot injury, but still I do think kept them a little bit more nervous about that. Without his legs, this offense is a little bit anemic. They get a little bit lost, they get a little bit bogged down, and when you have those two edge defenders, it's just going to be really hard for him to find space. So Torrey Blaylock's going to have to be huge. Xavier Robertson's going to have to be huge. All of those guys are going to have to run the football, or it's going to be a long day at the office for that Oklahoma offense, as it has been in the past couple of weeks, and really for the majority of the year. I don't want to say the entire year, for the vast majority of the year. The fascinating thing to watch is Ahmad Hardy versus this Oklahoma run defense. Oklahoma's top 2 rush defense in basically every single category you can find in the entire country. Ahmad Hardy's a totally different beast. Can they contain him enough in this game? I think the interesting thing is, you look back to that Texas game that they played. Trey Wisner didn't have an elite day. He did enough, and he found enough openings in that Oklahoma run defense. Ahmad Hardy, if you give him one opening, could totally change this football game. So that is a very interesting thing to watch. You obviously, at least me personally, I tend to favor the elite run defense against the elite run offense, but it's up in the air pretty much every time that you face off. We'll see what Missouri has. I think it's going to be a fist fight. I think these two teams are going to get bogged down a little bit. I think the edge rushers on both sides make a massive impact, whether it's Taylor Wine or R. Mason Thomas for Oklahoma. It's just going to be 2 elite defensive lines going at it. That's what I really think. I think Oklahoma does enough. I don't think it's pretty. I don't think they necessarily love the offensive performance, but I think they win this one 24-18. I think they win another fist fight, and they get one step closer to that CFP berth with an LSU team that hasn't played well all season. I can almost promise you that one's not going to be easy, and probably is going to be a slugfest as well. I just think that's the way Oklahoma's going to have to win games. I think they're more than comfortable with that. So I'll pick Oklahoma to win this one 24-18. I think it's going to be a really, really fun one over there in Norman. Number 15, USC at number 7, Oregon. The main event of the weekend. Oregon favored by 9.5 in this game. The over-under at 59.5. This one's going to be fun. There's no doubt about that. And they kind of profile relatively similarly. Both really good on the lines of scrimmage. Really solid run games from both teams. Maybe more options over there at Oregon, but plenty good options over there at USC. Explosive pass games, obviously, for both these teams. And 2 aggressive coaches. Lincoln Riley maybe not quite as aggressive as Dan Campbell can be from time to time, but Lincoln Riley can get plenty aggressive, can get plenty weird on the offensive side of the ball. There's two questions that have to be answered here. Has Oregon found their groove? And can they keep up with Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane? Because that's really the only way. I don't want to say that. There are a number of ways that USC could find a way to win this football game, in my opinion, if they do not at least semi-slow down Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane, they will not be able to win this one because Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper kind of had their way with them against Indiana. They've only faced two top 50 pass offenses, Rutgers and Indiana. This personnel is going to be better than both those. I put Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane right up there with Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper, maybe even a little bit above. As crazy as that sounds, Makai Lemon is out of this world good. Oregon's the top pass defense in the country. How much of that is about the offenses they faced? How much of that is about them? We'll find out on Saturday because this is a very, very good pass offense with two of the very best wide receivers in the country. I talked about it when we broke down the USC Iowa game. I don't know why I was blank on that. The USC Iowa game. The fact that Jacoby Lane is a wide receiver 2 on a football team is outright insane. But if Oregon wins this one, I think we have it relatively decided in the Big Ten. It comes down to one game. It comes down to Michigan, Ohio State at the end of the year to decide, is it going to be 4 teams? Is it going to be 3 teams from the Big Ten? If USC wins, that's when things get interesting. That's when a 10-2 Oregon gets very nervous because your biggest win is going to be an Iowa team that could finish the season 7-5. That's still a very good Iowa team. I want to make that very clear. But at the end of the day, that's not going to move a lot of heads. And there's going to be a world where there's a lot of 10-2 teams right there. Do you outrank Miami? I'd bet you won't, as crazy as that sounds. I think that Notre Dame game will do plenty for Miami to put them above you at 10-2, and I think a number of other teams would do the exact same as well. So I think a 10-2 Oregon would be in a little bit of trouble. Obviously, they would get the benefit of being Oregon, and they would get the benefit of, I think a lot of people look at that and they say that's a very good football team. So I don't think it would hurt them terribly. I think it would put them on the bubble and make things a little bit uncomfortable down the stretch for this Oregon football team. I think it's going to be an awesome game. It's one in the preseason that we all look forward to and probably said, I really hope that's an awesome one. I really hope USC holds up their end of the bargain. I think we all felt pretty good about Oregon going into this year, but USC, we just hope they held up their end of the bargain. They have. And now we got an absolute battle up there in Eugene. I've gone back and forth here. I really do think USC has a shot to win this game. I think the Oregon run game has gotten so much better over the last couple of weeks. I think their younger defensive players are starting to get more confident. I think Oregon wins this game 34-23. I think it's a really fun one. They get up and down a little bit in the first half. I think Oregon has a very, very minor physicality advantage. I don't think it's massive. I don't think USC's physicality advantage would be a negative to many teams in the entire country. I think this is one where they have a slight advantage in that category. I think the run game with Noah Whittington will be the difference in this one, and Oregon will get a big-time win and officially send themselves to the CFP, probably, to make sure going into that last game against Washington. I'll take Oregon to win this one and knock USC out of the CFP. Still a very successful season for Lincoln Riley, but definitely a little bit left on the table here. Pitt at number 16, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech favored by 2.5 in this game, over under at 62.5. A massive one in the ACC that pretty much will, I don't want to say that, could very well decide half of the ACC title. If Georgia Tech does win it, they will be in the ACC title. So it very well could decide half the ACC title if Georgia Tech ends up being the winner of this one. Regardless of the outcome in the Georgia game, they will end up being in Charlotte at the end of the year. On the other side, if Pitt was able to win this game, they go into a game against Miami that they got to win it to get in. I think Miami could knock them out. Miami could make the conference title, although it's very, very unlikely at this very moment. Georgia Tech could lose this game and make the title, but again, very unlikely. So pretty much, whoever wins this game is in the driver's seat to probably join Virginia in that championship game over there in Charlotte. And it would be a weird one. There's no doubt about that. It would make a lot of people that want to exclude certain teams from the CFP a little bit upset, but two teams that have firmly earned it. There's no doubt about that. But Pitt comes into this one after a tough loss against Notre Dame. The good news is they didn't care, so they're all good over there. But they do come in with a top 10 rush defense. They struggled against Notre Dame. Imagine that. Jeremiah Love will do that to you. So I'm not super worried That being said, this is a very, very talented team. This is a very comprehensive rush attack that can make things really, really tough, even on some elite run defenses. Even on Georgia last year, they made life a nightmare for all those guys up front the entire day. So that'll be something to watch. Haynes King will have to make plays with his arm. We've talked about that plenty. He is more than capable of doing that this year. The other part of this is this Georgia Tech pass defense is not good. They have gotten attacked by every single elite passer that they have faced the entirety of the year, including Dylan Lonergan last week. Mason Heinschel can do that. They have to get after this kid. That was the thing that Notre Dame kind of showed last weekend. Not necessarily an overly surprising thing for a young quarterback. You push that kid off his spot, he will give you the football. He's a very talented thrower of the football. He's still forcing it just a little bit. And I think that's something that Georgia Tech has not been able to get a ton of pressure. They might just have to force it. They might just have to send 6 guys. They might have to send 5 guys on just about every snap just to try to get a couple of those game-changing plays. Because I've talked about it quite a bit with this Georgia Tech football team. They don't need to be elite defensively. They need to be opportunistic. They need to find a way to get a couple of sacks, maybe a turnover per game, find a way to do a couple of things to give your offense 1 more possession, 2 more possessions in a football game. You're going to win a whole lot. I can promise you that. So I think this is going to be a really fun game. I think they go back and forth with kind of different approaches, but both have tons of success on the offensive side of the ball. This is just an outright feel game for me. This is not necessarily about X's and O's. This is not about any numbers on a page. This is about Haynes King playing his final game in Bobby Dodd Stadium on Saturday night. I don't know why. I don't know why that's the thing that keeps coming back to me. I think that guy is going to play till his arm falls off. I think he is going to play until they are up on that scoreboard and the clock hits 0. I think Georgia Tech will win a weird one here. I can't describe it. I think a guy like Haynes King is going to will that team to victory. I think the seniors on that team that have kind of built up what this new Georgia Tech is moving forward are going to will that team to victory. I don't know why. I really can't tell you exactly how it's going to go down. I really can't tell you how any Georgia Tech game is going to go down the rest of the way. Other than that, they're going to be close. I'm going to pick Georgia Tech to win this one 33-30. I think Haynes King has a massive moment in front of that crowd at night and kind of goes out as a hero around Georgia Tech football. Number 11, BYU on the road at Cincinnati, a game that lost a little bit of its luster this past weekend when Cincinnati lost to Arizona, but still a big-time game that can put BYU in a great position to rematch with that team that beat them a couple of weeks ago in Texas Tech and set themselves up okay for an at-large bid. It's really hard to know what an 11-2 BYU would be against a 10-2 Miami or a 10-2 Vanderbilt, but at the end of the day, would keep them in that conversation at the very least. There's no doubt about that. But here's the thing about this matchup. Both these teams are going to lean on the run. They both have very, very elite rush offenses, especially within the Big Ten. LJ Martin on one side is absolutely elite. Tawi Walker on the other, not too far off from him. Incredible running backs in this game. Cincinnati does have a little bit of an advantage in the pass game, no doubt about that. Neither defense is elite. BYU's is way more disruptive. BYU has the ability. They're 11th in the country in turnover margin per game. They're able to get homed at the quarterback a couple of different times per game. And Brendan Sorsby, he's played really good football throughout this year. These last couple of games, defensive lines have started to get after him just a little bit, and it's just 1 or 2 mistakes here or there. So both teams are likely looking at their last gasp for the Big 12 title. I think if BYU loses, it just gets too crowded. There's so many different teams. Cincinnati would have the tiebreaker over them. Texas Tech obviously would, and there's a number of other tie-ins and things that just make it very complicated overall, and it would be a very interesting thing to watch. But if Cincinnati were to lose to TCU to finish the season, then BYU could lose this game. Let's just be totally honest. One of these teams has to win this game if they want to make the Big 12 championship. I feel fairly confident in that stance. But Cincinnati had a chance to totally change the college football world here. If they were able to win this game and beat Arizona last week, then they would have been in a position to possibly be the at-large team from that conference. I think if they win this game now, especially with those 2 losses, it would probably lock the Big 12 into one bid. Now, could Utah sneak in as an at-large? I suppose. But if BYU loses after Utah, that being one of your losses, and you have Cincinnati play Texas Tech and Texas Tech rolls in the Big 12 championship, I don't know why you would put Utah in. Now, we'll see how that develops. Obviously, a lot to be done in this game, but I'll be totally honest. I feel pretty confident in BYU in this spot. I think they're going to be able to get after Brendan Sorsby just enough, force a couple of mistakes, and they'll be able to get this one done. 27-23 is what I landed on in this game. I think BYU gets a win. They continue marching forward to that Big 12 title, and then you just got to figure out if an at-large bid is on the table for this football team. I tend to believe it should be. Is it is a massive question, and I don't know the answer. They got to win this one before they get anything. So we'll see what happens there. I think they get the win, but I think it's a really fun one up there in Cincinnati. We got some great games. Obviously, it is the SEC deciding to take the week off type of week over here in week 13. So we are losing some big time games, but there's plenty of great ones around. And we got to talk about some upsets that could happen this upcoming weekend. We got JMU, Michigan, Utah, Vanderbilt, Texas, all on upset alert, all in a little bit of danger, especially as the CFP kind of looms in their future. We'll talk about it all right after this, so stick with us.